Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons and love are told. If you enjoy listening to powerful stories like this, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. My name is Elena Moore, and for as long as I can remember, my life has been shaped by two sharp edges: love and betrayal. I grew up in a small neighborhood outside Houston, Texas. My father, Henry, was the kind of man who would bring home flowers for my mother, Lydia, every Friday evening and never forgot to tuck me in with a story. He was the anchor of my world, and when he passed away from a sudden heart attack, everything stable in my life collapsed like a building with no foundation. After the funeral, silence became my companion. I would sit at the edge of my bed, staring at the framed photograph of him on my dresser, pretending he was still in the room. My mother, broken and desperate, remarried within a year to a man named Raymond. He seemed charming at first. He would smile with his neatly trimmed mustache and speak in polished words that made neighbors think he was respectable. But behind closed doors, Raymond's true nature showed itself in small, cutting remarks that grew into full-blown disdain for me. He came with a daughter, Miranda, who was a year older than me. From the beginning, she acted as if my presence was an annoyance she had to endure. "You don't belong in this family," she once whispered when no one was watching. I laughed it off at first, but as the years passed, it became clear she wasn't joking. She treated me as if I was the outsider invading her perfect little kingdom. And my mother, instead of shielding me, seemed to shrink further into Raymond's shadow, relying on him for everything. The worst blow came the summer before college. My father had left behind a savings account meant for my education, something he'd carefully built over the years because he believed so strongly in my future. I remember sneaking into his office when I was younger, watching him scribble numbers into a small notebook, whispering, "This is for Elena. One day she'll chase her dreams with this." I held on to that promise like a lifeline, but one afternoon while passing the dining room, I overheard Raymond and my mother talking. "That fund is ours now," Raymond said coldly. "Elena doesn't need all that. Miranda will put it to better use." I froze in the hallway, my heart thundering. My mother's reply sliced deeper than Raymond's words. "You're right. Elena will manage somehow. She always does." I didn't confront them right away. Instead, I went upstairs and cried silently into my pillow. I felt like the ground beneath me had split open, swallowing the last piece of my father's love that remained. Days later, when I gathered the courage to ask about it, Raymond smirked, sliding the envelope with the withdrawal slip across the table. "Life isn't fair, Elena. Get used to it." Miranda, smug as ever, strutted around in new clothes and planned her extravagant freshman year at a private university, funded by what was supposed to be mine. Meanwhile, I was left scrambling. The betrayal burned inside me, but I didn't want them to see me broken. I worked double shifts at a local diner, sometimes staying on my feet for 12 hours straight just to save enough for tuition at a state school. The smell of fried grease clung to my hair and skin, and some nights I cried in the locker room, wondering if I'd ever escape. When the acceptance letter from the University of Texas finally came, I packed my bags with trembling hands. My mother barely looked up from her magazine as I stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand. "Good luck," she muttered, as though I was just another tenant moving out. Raymond didn't say a word. Miranda didn't even bother coming home to see me leave. I boarded the bus alone, staring out the window as my childhood home shrank into the distance. My chest ached, but beneath the pain, something else flickered resolve. If they thought they had destroyed me, they were wrong. I promised myself that one day, I would build a life so big, so untouchable, that they would regret underestimating me. The first months at college were brutal. I juggled 3 part-time jobs working at the library, tutoring high school students in math, and cleaning offices at night. Sleep became a luxury, meals became hurried bites of instant noodles, and loneliness pressed heavily on my shoulders. But one evening, while struggling to keep my eyes open in the campus cafe, I met Alexandra. She slid into the seat across from me with a warm smile. "You look like you're about to fall apart. Need some company?" Her kindness disarmed me. Unlike Miranda, she didn't see me as competition. She saw me. We studied together, shared secrets, and slowly, She became the sister I never had. When I confessed about the stolen college fund, she squeezed my hand and said, "You're not defined by what they took from you. You're defined by what you create from it." Her words stuck with me, and soon an idea began to bloom. I noticed how many students struggled to organize their schedules, assignments, and budgets. I started sketching an app concept on napkins during breaks at the diner. It was rough, imperfect, but it felt like a spark of hope. Of course, the obstacles didn't stop. When I tried to pitch the idea to professors, some dismissed me. "App development is oversaturated," they'd say. "Focus on something more practical." But I couldn't let it go. I spent late nights teaching myself coding through free online tutorials, scribbling formulas and diagrams across sticky notes plastered all over my dorm walls. There were moments I nearly gave up when the app crashed for the 10th time, when I couldn't afford new software, when exhaustion blurred my vision. But each setback reminded me of Raymond's smirk and Miranda's sneer, fueling me to push harder. I told myself, if they could steal my future, I can build another one from scratch. And so, slowly but surely, I built the first working version of my app. It wasn't glamorous. The design was clunky and the features were limited, but it worked. Alexandra became my first test user, patiently pointing out bugs while cheering me on. The pride I felt in seeing her successfully use, it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. For the first time since my father's death, I felt him with me again, guiding, encouraging, whispering that I was on the right path. Even as I struggled with bills and sleepless nights, I held on to that small victory. It was the seed of something greater, though I didn't yet know just how far it would take me. All I knew was that I had escaped the prison of my stepfamily's cruelty, and I was building a new life with my own hands. And deep down, I sensed that one day, they would see the woman they had tried to erase standing tall in a world they could never touch. The early years of college taught me how to live with almost nothing and still keep my spirit alive. That lesson carried me into the next stage of my life, where every choice I made came with high risks and uncertain rewards. After I released the first version of my student planning app, I didn't know whether it would go anywhere. But word began to spread quietly across campus. Friends shared it with friends, and soon, students from other universities were emailing me asking when they could download it. Each new message felt like a spark, a tiny affirmation that I wasn't chasing a fantasy. I still remember the first time I stood in front of a class of business students, nervously pitching my app during an entrepreneurship showcase. My hands trembled as I held the microphone, but I poured out every detail of my struggle. How I came from nothing, how I wanted to give students tools I never had. The judges didn't award me first place, but afterward, a man in the audience approached me. He wore a simple blazer, no tie, and he smiled with genuine curiosity. "You've got grit," he said. "I'm Daniel Ramirez. Keep in touch. I'd like to see where this goes." At the time, I had no idea how important he would become in my story. I tucked his business card into my notebook and returned to my nightly shifts cleaning offices. But Daniel's words stayed with me, echoing each time I thought about giving up. Graduation came faster than I expected, and with it came pressure from every direction. Recruiters filled my inbox with job offers, respectable salaries, benefits, the stability I had dreamed of during my darkest days. Alexandra urged me to consider them. "Elena, you've suffered enough. Maybe taking one of these jobs could give you some peace." But my gut wouldn't let me accept. I saw my app not just as a project, but as proof that I could shape my destiny without anyone else dictating my worth. Turning down those offers felt reckless yet liberating. I told Alexandra, "If I can survive everything my family did to me, I can survive this gamble too." The gamble turned into sleepless nights again. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Austin, barely large enough for a bed and desk. I sold old textbooks for extra cash and $8 store meals while coding late into the night. Bugs, crashes, server issues, I fought them all alone. When my laptop screen flickered and died one morning, I nearly collapsed from despair. But instead of quitting, I took the bus across town to a repair shop and bargained until the owner fixed it for half the cost. Survival became an art form. Then came the turning point. I applied for a local startup pitch competition, hoping for visibility if nothing else. On the day of the event, I walked onto the stage in a thrift store blazer and shoes that pinched my feet. My slides were simple, my voice steady, but my story was raw. I told them about my father's dream for my education, how it was stolen from me, how I built something from the ashes of that betrayal. By the time I finished, the room was quiet. Then came applause louder than I had ever imagined. Afterward, Daniel found me again. "You don't just have an app," he said. "You have a vision. I'll invest." My heart nearly stopped. He wasn't promising millions, just enough to build a proper team and market the product, but to me, it was like being handed oxygen after drowning. With Daniel's investment, everything changed. I hired 2 fellow graduates who believed in my mission as fiercely as I did. We worked from my cramped apartment at first, laptops balanced on stacks of books, surviving on instant coffee and determination. Slowly, the app transformed into something polished, intuitive, and powerful. Students across Texas began downloading it in droves, and soon schools themselves contacted me about partnerships. The first time a university paid us to integrate the app into their student services, I sat in my car afterward, gripping the steering wheel, tears streaming down my face. For so long, I had felt invisible, unwanted, disposable. Now I was building something people needed, something that mattered. My father's voice echoed in my memory. "One day, she'll chase her dreams with this." And I realized I was finally doing it. The next 5 years blurred into a whirlwind. The app expanded nationwide, then internationally. Investors lined up. Journalists wrote features about the girl who turned betrayal into brilliance. And I found myself standing on conference stages, inspiring others with my story. But despite the fame, I kept my focus steady. I wasn't chasing vanity, I was building purpose. When I sold the company in its 5th year, the offer stunned me. It was more money than I had ever imagined holding, enough to ensure I would never again wonder if I could pay rent or buy food. I signed the papers with shaking hands, then used part of the earnings to buy my dream, a beachfront home with wide windows that looked out onto the ocean. For the first time in my life, I woke up to the sound of waves instead of slammed doors or raised voices. But success didn't erase the wounds. Alone in that beautiful house, I sometimes sat on the balcony and asked myself why the emptiness remained. I had achieved everything they said I couldn't, yet I still carried the scars of neglect. Therapy became my lifeline. Week after week, I unpacked the layers of abandonment, betrayal, and loneliness. My therapist helped me see that healing wasn't about erasing the past, it was about reclaiming it. Out of that healing came an idea bigger than myself. I founded a scholarship program for students from broken or unsupportive families, kids like me who were told they weren't enough. Each time I handed out a scholarship award, I felt my father smiling down on me, his legacy woven into the futures of others. And just when I thought I had closed the door on my past, 12 years after I first walked out of my mother's house, a knock came at my door. Standing there on my porch, dressed in clothes that looked worn from hardship, were my mother, Raymond, and Miranda. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It was as if my old wounds had materialized into flesh and bone right in front of me. They weren't there to reconcile. They were there because Miranda's husband's business was failing, and they needed me. And in that moment I knew the reckoning had finally arrived. When I opened the door and saw them standing there, it felt like time folded in on itself. My mother's eyes darted nervously, Raymond kept his arms crossed like a man too proud to admit defeat, and Miranda wore that same tight smirk she had carried since we were teenagers, except this time, it looked strained, desperate even. I leaned against the doorframe, my chest tightening, memories flooding back like unwelcome ghosts. "Elena," my mother whispered, her voice softer than I remembered. We need to talk." I let the silence hang for a beat, letting them feel the weight of all the years they had erased me from their lives. I thought about the 12 Christmases they celebrated without me, the birthdays ignored, the family reunions where my chair sat empty by their choice, not mine. And now here they were, knocking on the door of the home I built with my own hands, hoping I would save them. "Talk?" I said finally, my voice calm but cold. "Or ask for money?" Miranda flinched, but Raymond answered bluntly, "Her husband's business is collapsing. We thought, with all your success, you might be able to help." I almost laughed. The audacity of it. The same man who once slid my college fund across the table, like it was his prize, now stood on my porch asking for a lifeline. I motioned them inside, not because I wanted them there, but because I wanted this conversation to happen on my terms, in the home they once swore I'd never have. The living room, with its wide ocean view, made them visibly uncomfortable. My mother's eyes roamed the space as though she couldn't reconcile the daughter she dismissed with the woman who owned this luxury. Miranda sat stiffly on the edge of the sofa, clutching her designer handbag, like it was the last thing she could control. Raymond stayed standing, his jaw tight, refusing to look at me directly. I sat across from them, crossing my legs slowly, giving them no room to escape my gaze. "Do you remember," I began, "the summer before college, when you told me I would manage somehow after you drained my fund? Do you remember how you never once called me when I left? Not even a happy birthday, not even a, 'How are you?'" My mother lowered her head. "I was wrong, Elena. I was weak. I let Raymond. Don't you dare blame it all on him," I cut in sharply. "You were my mother. You were supposed to fight for me. Instead, you chose silence." Miranda rolled her eyes, though her voice trembled. "Are we really doing this? It was years ago. We came here for help, not to dig up old wounds." "Old wounds?" I leaned forward, my tone firm. "Those wounds built this house. They built the woman sitting across from you now. So yes, we are doing this." The room went quiet. Even the ocean outside seemed to hush. Finally, I spoke the words I had carried for years. "You excluded me for 12 years. You made me feel like I was nothing. But you know what? I used that pain to build everything you see around you. And now you want to benefit from it? No. I won't give you money." Raymond scoffed. "Figures. You're still bitter." I met his glare. "No. I'm healed. And healing means I won't let you use me again." Miranda shifted uncomfortably. "So that's it? You'll just let my family sink?" "You're not my family," I said softly but firmly. "Blood makes you related, but family is proven through action, and your actions spoke loudly." I thought they would storm out then, but something unexpected happened. My mother's shoulders crumpled and tears spilled down her cheeks. "Elena, I'm sorry. I was blind. I wanted stability and I sacrificed you for it. Please believe me when I say I regret it every single day." Her words pierced me in ways I hadn't prepared for. Part of me wanted to stay guarded to keep my armor up. But another part, the part that still longed for a mother's love, softened. I didn't forgive her at that moment, not fully, but I allowed the door to crack open. As for Miranda's husband's business, I offered something different. "I won't write you a check," I said. "But if he's serious about fixing things, I'll mentor him. I'll show him what it takes to survive when the world knocks you down. That's the only help I'll give." Raymond muttered under his breath, clearly dissatisfied, and left without saying goodbye. Miranda followed him reluctantly, but not before glancing back at me with a mixture of resentment and envy. My mother stayed a little longer, holding my hand, whispering thank you through her tears before she too left. That night, as I sat on the balcony with the waves rolling in, I felt a strange calm. I had faced the people who broke me and stood unshaken. Over the months that followed, my mother kept reaching out. Slowly, carefully, I allowed her back into my life, not as the mother I once needed, but as a woman seeking redemption. With boundaries, with caution, I rebuilt something small with her. Miranda never changed, but her husband took my advice seriously. I met with him a few times, guiding him through business strategy, and to my surprise, he listened. Watching him improve his company reminded me why I had built my scholarship foundation in the first place, to turn pain into possibility. As my foundation expanded, I began supporting young adults aging out of foster care, kids who, like me, knew what it felt like to be discarded. Every success story fueled me, reminding me that I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was creating legacies. Looking back, I see that my greatest strength came from my deepest wounds. The betrayal that once defined me became the fuel that carried me to freedom, purpose, and peace. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, it meant releasing their hold on me. And in doing so, I learned that true family is not about who shares your blood, but who shares your heart. Moral lesson. Life has a way of turning our deepest pain into our greatest power, if we choose to rise instead of collapse. My story is proof that betrayal doesn't have to define your ending. It can ignite your beginning. I learned that forgiveness is not a gift you give to those who hurt you. It's a gift you give to yourself, so you can move forward without chains. If you've ever felt excluded, abandoned, or underestimated, remember this. You are not limited by where you came from. You can build your own doors when others shut theirs in your face. And when you finally stand in the wow, true family is shown in action, not in titles or bloodlines. And sometimes the greatest revenge is not anger, but living a life so full, so radiant, that those who tried to break you can only watch from the sidelines. Hello guys, if this story touched you, please like this video, share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts and lessons learned.